The knife plunged into Marcus's side as he lunged between the masked man and Lily. Blood soaked his torn shirt, but he didn't let go of her wrist. The kidnapper's van idled 20 feet away, engine growling. Lily screamed as Marcus crumpled to the pavement, his vision blurring. The last thing he saw before darkness swallowed him was chrome glinting in the sun, motorcycles roaring into the parking lot. Lily's father, the Hell Angels president, had arrived. But Marcus didn't know if he'd live to see what came next, or if saving her would cost him everything. Welcome to the Hells Angels family. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now because this story will shake you to your core. To my faithful subscribers who've been here from the beginning, may God continue to bless you abundantly. Before we dive in, let's lift this moment up in prayer. Heavenly Father, I come before you asking for your divine protection over everyone watching right now. Bless their families, Lord. Heal their bodies, provide for their needs, and give them peace that surpasses all understanding. Surround them with your favor, and let your presence be felt in their lives today. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Now, what you're about to witness isn't just a story about a homeless boy and a biker's daughter. It's about ordinary outcasts taking on a ruthless network when a 7-year-old girl's life is targeted, and powerful men will do anything to keep their darkness hidden. Marcus didn't see the knife until it was already swinging toward the little girl. "Lily, run," he shouted. The word tore out of his throat, raw and panicked, as the tall man in the faded hoodie lunged from behind the white van, one hand clamping around Lily's arm, the other flashing silver in the dim alley light. Lily's ice cream dropped from her fingers and splattered on the cracked pavement as she froze, eyes wide, too shocked to even scream. Marcus moved before his brain could catch up. His bare feet slapped the cold concrete as he launched himself forward, ribs aching from the night before, hunger twisting in his stomach. He had been sitting behind the diner's dumpster, knees to his chest, counting the coins in his pocket and trying to decide if he'd eat tonight or wait till morning. Then he saw the van. No headlights, no engine sound, just a slow, crawling roll along the back of the diner, like a shark gliding under dark water. He knew that feeling, that wrongness. He had watched too many people disappear on streets like this. Now, every instinct screamed at him as he slammed shoulder first into the man gripping Lily. The force knocked the kidnapper off balance. For one glorious second, Lily's arm came free and she stumbled back with a sob, clutching her wrist. Then the knife flashed again. It punched into Marcus's side like a white-hot fist. He didn't even feel the blade at first, just the impact, the sudden loss of air, the way his legs almost buckled. He heard a wet, ugly sound and realized it was coming from his own body. Then the pain hit, a burning shockwave ripping through his ribs. Lily screamed. That's when it became real. "Let her go," Marcus gasped, shoving himself between her and the man. He could smell the kidnapper's breath. Cigarettes, coffee, and something sour. The man cursed and tried to yank Marcus aside, but Marcus wrapped both arms around Lily and pulled her behind him, turning his own body into a shield. "Get in the van," the driver snarled from the open sliding door. "Grab the girl and go, idiot." The alley suddenly felt too small, boxed in by brick walls, overflowing trash cans, and the looming bulk of the idling van. Its engine growled softly, ready to leap forward. The back door of the diner was still closed. The noisy clatter of dishes and distant laughter from inside didn't reach out here. No one knew what was happening. "Run to the diner, Lily," Marcus wheezed. "Now." She hesitated, tiny body shaking, tears streaking down her cheeks. I can't leave you." The man with the knife grabbed Marcus by his shirt and yanked him forward, twisting the blade inside him. Marcus's vision exploded with white dots. His knees hit the ground, and hot blood soaked through his fingers as he clutched his side. "Take her," the driver barked again. "We're out of time." The knife man swung around Marcus, reaching for Lily. Marcus didn't think, didn't plan. He just moved. He lunged low, tackling the man's legs with everything he had left. They both crashed to the pavement. The knife skittered away, clinking under the van. The man's head smacked the ground, and he roared in rage, kicking Marcus in the stomach. Pain flared through the stab wound, but Marcus locked his arms around the man's knees, teeth gritted, refusing to let go. "Run, Lily," he rasped. "Please." She stumbled backward, then turned and bolted toward the diner's back door, sobbing, "Daddy, Daddy." The word echoed down the alley like a siren. The driver cursed and jumped out of the van, slamming the door behind him. Big, broad shoulders. Baseball cap pulled low. He grabbed Marcus by the hair and yanked his head up. "You stupid little rat," he hissed. "You had to play hero." Marcus stared up at him, chest heaving, blood filling his mouth with a copper taste. He thought of the nights he'd spend alone in the cold, of people walking past like he didn't exist. He thought of Lily's small hands offering him half a sandwich, her gap-toothed smile when she'd said, "You look lonely. Do you want to be my friend?" No one had ever said those words to him before. If they liked this kid's courage, they deserve to hear more. Don't scroll past his story, hit subscribe. The driver drew back his fist. Before it landed, a sound split the night. The low, thunderous rumble of motorcycle engines. It started faint, like distant storm clouds, then swelled into a pounding roar that seemed to shake the walls of the alley. The driver froze, head snapping toward the street. His partner shoved Marcus away and scrambled to his feet, eyes wide. "Is that bikes?" he muttered. Marcus's heart hammered as the sound grew louder. He knew that sound. Everyone in this neighborhood did. It meant one thing. The Hells Angels were riding. "Forget the girl," the driver snapped. "We're blown. Move." They sprinted for the van. Marcus clawed at the ground, trying to crawl after them, but his arms trembled and gave out. Warm blood kept spilling between his fingers, puddling beneath him, sticky and dark in the alley light. The van's engine roared. Tires squealed. "Lily," Marcus croaked, trying to push himself up again. His vision blurred, the world wobbling in and out of focus. The pain in his side pulsed with every heartbeat, hot and relentless. The back door of the diner slammed open. Lily's scream cut through the alley. "Daddy, Marcus is hurt." Boots pounded against the concrete. A harsh voice shouted, "Lily, get behind me." Then another, deeper, carried on a wave of rage. "Where are they? Where the hell are they?" The van shot out of the alley mouth, fishtailing as it turned onto the main road. For a split second, its headlights caught the line of motorcycles tearing down the street. Chrome and black paint, leather cuts, and roaring engines like an approaching army. They were headed straight for the diner. The van swerved, trying to thread the gap. One of the bikers leaned hard, his front wheel skimming the van's fender. Another rider kicked out, boots slamming into the side panel with a metallic thud. The van lurched away, sideswiping a trash bin, then disappeared around the corner in a screech of tires. The bikes didn't chase. Most of them swung into the parking lot in a sweeping formation, engines growling as they braked hard. One stopped dead at the mouth of the alley, the rider ripping off his helmet. Garrett, Lily's father. Marcus had only ever seen him from a distance, broad-shouldered, arms covered in ink, the Hells Angels patch blazing on the back of his leather vest. Up close, he looked even more dangerous. Eyes like cold fire, jaw clenched so tight a vein throbbed at his temple. Now those eyes landed on Marcus. For the first time, Marcus wasn't invisible to him. Garrett took in the blood, the torn shirt, the way Marcus's hands shook as he tried to keep his insides from spilling out. Lily was already at his side, on her knees in the grime, hands fluttering helplessly over Marcus's wound. "Daddy, he saved me," she sobbed. "They tried to take me, and he jumped, Her words broke apart in hiccuping cries. Garrett dropped to one knee beside them, his massive frame blocking out the alley light. Up close, Marcus could see the scar that ran from the corner of Garrett's eyebrow down to his cheek. The man smelled like oil, leather, and cigarette smoke. "Press here," Garrett ordered one of the bikers behind him, voice like gravel. "Hard. Don't let up." A pair of rough but steady hands replaced Marcus's own, clamping down on the wound. Marcus groaned, biting back a scream. His vision swam. "You stay awake, kid," Garrett said, leaning closer. "You hear me? You don't get to check out on me after what you just pulled." Marcus blinked sluggishly. I didn't want to let them take her." His words slurred together. His tongue felt too big for his mouth. Garrett's expression shifted, still fierce, but something else flickered there. Something Marcus had never seen aimed at him before. Respect. Fear. Maybe even gratitude. "What's your name?" Garrett demanded. Marcus swallowed hard. Even that tiny movement sent a fresh wave of nausea rolling through him. Marcus," he whispered. Lily clutched his hand. "Don't let him die, Daddy. Please. Please don't let him die. Stay with them, Lily." And if this story cuts your heart, subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Garrett snapped his fingers at another biker. Snake, call an ambulance. Tell them we've got a minor with a deep stab wound. And if they drag their feet, tell them who you're with. Snake, thin, sharp features, long hair tied back, already had his phone out. On it, he muttered, pacing away, barking into the receiver. Marcus's ears buzzed. The world seemed to tilt sideways for a second. He smelled exhaust fumes drifting in from the lot, heard the rumble of the motorcycles idling like restless beasts. You're gonna be all right, kid, Garrett said, his voice lower now. You bought my little girl a few extra seconds. That's the only reason she's standing here and not in the back of that van. Marcus tried to smile, but his lips barely moved. She gave me food once, he mumbled. Didn't want her to go with them. His mind drifted for a moment, slipping back to that first day. Lily skipping over, clutching a sandwich in both hands, pigtails bouncing. You look cold, she'd said, simple and honest. Daddy says some people just need a little kindness. Are you one of those people? No one had ever asked what he needed before. The alley blurred. Marcus blinked hard, but the edges of everything kept softening. A siren wailed faintly in the distance, growing closer. Garrett's hand landed on Marcus's shoulder, surprisingly gentle for a man built like a wall. You hear that, he said. That's for you. You're not dying in my alley, Marcus. Not after saving my kid. Marcus wanted to believe him, but his fingers were going numb. His chest felt tight, each breath a shaky struggle. Lily's voice sounded far away now, like she was shouting from the other end of a long tunnel. Don't go to sleep, she pleaded. Please don't go to sleep. He tried to focus on her face, freckles, wet lashes, the little pink bow in her hair. He tried to hold on to that image, to pin himself to it. The siren grew louder. Red and blue lights flickered at the alley mouth, painting the brick walls in pulsing colors. Paramedics rushed in with a stretcher, moving fast. Hands lifted him. Pain flared, so fierce he almost blacked out. Someone shouted medical terms over his head. A mask pressed over his mouth and nose. As they wheeled him toward the open ambulance doors, Marcus turned his head just enough to see the parking lot. Rows of bikes. Men in leather vests watching with hard, unreadable eyes. The Hells Angels. Behind them, the diner glowed warm and yellow, like a different universe he didn't belong to. Then he saw Garrett. The biker stood in the middle of the lot, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and deadly calm. Marcus couldn't hear the words, but he saw the way Garrett's jaw clenched, the way his free hand curled into a fist at his side. Whoever he was talking to, it wasn't emergency services. Lily broke away from the circle of bikers and ran beside the stretcher, grabbing Marcus's hand with both of hers. I'll see you soon, she promised through her tears. You're gonna come back. Daddy said so. You're our hero. Hero. No one had ever called him that either. The paramedics tried to guide her back, but Garrett's voice cut through the chaos. Let her walk with him. They obeyed. Marcus forced his eyes to stay open, for her. For the man who, for some reason, suddenly cared whether he breathed or not. As the stretcher lifted into the ambulance, Lily's fingers slipped from his. The doors swung half closed, and in that narrow slice of view, Marcus saw Garrett again. The biker's face was no longer just rage. It was something darker, colder, a promise. This wasn't over. The doors slammed shut. The siren screamed to life. And as the ambulance tore away from the diner, Marcus realized something that drowned out even the pain in his side. Those men hadn't just known where Lily would be. They had called her father by name. They knew exactly who they were attacking. And if they were willing to stab a homeless kid in an alley to get to her, what else were they willing to do? The question burned in his mind as the world finally went dark. Marcus woke to the sound of beeping. Sharp, rhythmic, too clean to be anything from the streets. His eyelids felt like they were glued shut, his mouth dry as dust. For a second, he thought he was back under the bridge, listening to passing cars. Then the sharp scent of antiseptic cut through the fog. Hospital. Panic jolted through him. His eyes snapped open to a blur of white ceiling tiles and harsh fluorescent lights. Something tugged at his arm. A needle taped into his skin, connected to a clear bag slowly dripping into a tube. His side throbbed, a deep, hot ache that flared when he tried to move. Easy, kid, a rough voice said from his left. You rip those stitches, and they'll cut you open again. Marcus turned his head carefully. Garrett sat in a plastic chair pulled close to the bed, arms folded across his chest, leather vest still on, boots planted wide. He looked like he didn't belong in this bright, sterile room, like someone had dropped a wolf into a cage of glass and chrome. For a second, Marcus thought he was dreaming. Men like that didn't sit at the bedsides of kids like him. How long? Marcus croaked. His throat burned. Garrett reached over, grabbed a plastic cup from the bedside table, and held the straw to his lips. Sip, not chug. Cold water slid down Marcus's throat, almost painfully refreshing. You were out most of the night, Garrett said. Surgery. Blood loss. Doc said if that knife had gone an inch deeper, we'd be having a very different conversation. Marcus swallowed, the words sinking in like stones. Lily. She's fine. Garrett's jaw flexed. A little shaken. A lot loud. She cried herself hoarse, convincing the nurses to let her sleep in this room. They finally kicked her out a couple hours ago to get some rest. Marcus tried to imagine Lily curled up in a hospital chair, refusing to leave. His chest tightened in a way that had nothing to do with the stabbing. I'm not dead, he muttered, more to himself than anyone. Garrett's gaze didn't soften. You're not. That's the only reason those men are. The way he said it sent a chill through Marcus. You caught them? Not yet. Garrett leaned back slightly, eyes never leaving Marcus's face. But we will. They made a mistake putting their hands on my little girl. They made a bigger mistake dragging you into it. Marcus frowned faintly. I dragged myself into it. For her, Garrett said. You didn't have to. He didn't say thank you. But it was there, in the space between the words. If this moment already has your heart racing, don't just watch. Like and subscribe so you don't miss what happens to Marcus next. Marcus shifted, wincing as pain flared in his side. Why am I in a room like this? He glanced around. The TV on the wall, the flowers on the table, the absence of other beds. They don't give this to kids like me. Garrett grunted. They do if someone pays for it. Marcus stared at him. You paid? The club did, Garrett corrected. You bled in our alley. You stopped our nightmare from getting in that van. That makes you our responsibility. Our. The word felt strange. Heavy. You could have just left me on the street, Marcus said quietly. It wasn't an accusation. Just a fact he'd learned too many times. Garrett's eyes hardened. Is that what you're used to? Marcus looked away. Doesn't matter. It does to me, Garrett said. You think I didn't see you back there? Behind the diner, under that stupid torn blanket? You've been there for weeks. Lily's been sneaking you food. You think I'm blind? A spike of shame shot through Marcus. I didn't mean any trouble. I just didn't have anywhere else. Garrett studied him for a long moment, like he was weighing something. You're 12, he said at last. You took a blade meant for my daughter. No one does that for free. Not in this world. So here's how this works. He leaned forward, forearms on his knees. You stay under our protection now. Doctors, food, a bed that isn't concrete. You don't run. You don't disappear. You heal. Marcus blinked. That's it. Garrett's mouth twitched in something that wasn't quite a smile. That's the easy part. The hard part is coming. A chill ran through Marcus. What hard part? Garrett's gaze darkened. Finding out who sent those men, and why they knew exactly where my kid would be, and what to call me to make me look twice. Marcus replayed the alley in his mind. The van. The knife. Lily's scream. The chaos. Then something flickered at the edge of his memory. They said your name, he murmured. Before they ran. The driver. He said, we don't have time, Garrett's, and then the bikes. Garrett's jaw clenched. Yeah, they knew me. They knew where Lily eats on Friday nights. They knew there'd be a back alley with no cameras. That means one of two things. He held up two fingers. Either they've been watching us for a long time, or someone who knows us handed them a map. Like a traitor? Marcus whispered. Garrett's eyes flicked to the closed hospital door, then back. We don't use that word lightly in my world. But yeah, maybe. Marcus swallowed. And you think, I can help with that? I'm just a kid. You're a kid who sees things from the cracks, Garrett said. Cameras miss what you notice. People talk different when they think you're nobody. You've been invisible in that alley for weeks. You know faces, patterns, vans that don't belong. He paused. If you're willing, you can help me make sure they never touch Lily again. The idea of being involved in whatever came next made Marcus's stomach twist. He had spent months trying not to be seen, to avoid trouble, to survive one day at a time. Now this man wanted to pull him into the center of a war he barely understood. But then he remembered Lily's hand in his, her tiny voice begging him not to die. He remembered the terror in her eyes when that knife flashed. "I don't want anything from you," he said slowly. "I just didn't want them to take her." Garrett's stare didn't waver. "That's exactly why I'm asking. The guys who took that job? They don't stop because the first attempt failed. They double down. And now they know there's a kid who's willing to get in their way. You're already in this, Marcus. Whether you meant to be or not." Silence settled over the room for a moment, broken only by the beeping monitors. "What happens if I say no?" Marcus asked at last. "You still get a bed and food and protection," Garrett said. "We don't trade in saving kids for favors." But he sat back. "They'll come looking again. For Lily. And maybe for the kid who messed up their plan. And I'll be fighting blind, without the one person who saw them up close before the lights and sirens." The weight of it all pressed down on Marcus's chest. On the streets, no one needed him. No one wanted him. Now, suddenly, someone did. Not as a charity case. As something else. A piece on the board. If you're still here, your support matters more than you realize. Pause for a second and hit like and subscribe to keep this story alive. The door clicked open. A nurse stepped in, early 30s, dark hair pulled into a bun, scrubs a soft blue. Her name tag read Anna. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good, you're awake," she said, pushing a small cart closer. "We need to check your vitals and give you another dose of pain meds." Garrett straightened, instantly alert. He just woke up. Can't that wait? Anna's smile widened, practiced and professional. "If you want him awake, this helps. Keeps the pain from dragging him back under. Doctor's orders." She glanced at Marcus. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" Marcus stiffened at the word. Sore. I bet." She pulled a syringe from a tray and held it up, flicking it lightly. Bubbles rose to the top. She pressed the plunger until a thin stream spat from the needle. Something in the way she watched the liquid made the hair on the back of Marcus's neck rise. "Where's your badge?" Garrett asked. Anna blinked. "Excuse me." "Your ID," Garrett said calmly. Too calmly. "Hospital staff wear it up here." He tapped his own chest. "Yours is on your belt. That normal now?" She let out a small laugh. "Someone's observant. It kept flipping around, so I clipped it lower. Occupational hazard." She moved closer, reaching for the 4-line. Marcus's heart rate spiked. The monitor beside him tattled on him with faster beeps. Garrett's hand caught her wrist before she touched the tube. "Doc said nothing else goes in him without me hearing about it first," he said. "So you can either get the doc, or I can call the nurse's station and ask them why your badge number doesn't match the name on your uniform." For a split second, Anna's smile cracked. Then it snapped back into place. "I think you're tired, sir. Stress does that. I'll just." Garrett's grip tightened. "Step back." Her other hand slid toward her hip pocket. Marcus saw it before Garrett did. A flash of black plastic. Not a phone. Not a pen. His mouth went dry. "Garrett." Garrett moved fast. He shoved the cart forward, wheels squealing, slamming it into Anna's stomach. The syringe flew from her fingers, spinning through the air and clattering against the floor. A tiny drop of dark liquid splashed on the tile. Not clear. Not the same color as the bag hanging over his head. Anna stumbled back, eyes flashing with fury. "You don't know what you're doing," she hissed. "You're making this worse. For all of you." Garrett stepped between her and the bed, one hand reaching behind his back, fingers brushing the outline of something under his vest. A weapon, even in a hospital. "Get out," he growled. For a moment, the room felt like the alley again, small, charged, one wrong move away from blood. Then Anna smoothed her scrubs, straightened, and stepped around the cart. "Security will hear about this," she said lightly. But her eyes, when they met Marcus's, were ice cold. "Sleep tight, hero." She walked out. The door closed. Garrett waited 3 full seconds, then lunged for it, yanking it open and looking both ways down the hall. "She's not on the staff list at the station," he muttered, half to himself. "Badge number's bogus." He shut the door again, locked it this time, and dragged a chair under the handle for good measure. Marcus stared at the syringe on the floor, the dark stain seeping into the white tile. "Was that for me?" he whispered. Garrett picked it up carefully by the barrel, eyes narrowing. "Yeah," he said, "and I'm guessing it wasn't vitamins." The reality of it hit Marcus like another punch to the ribs. It wasn't just two men in an alley anymore. It wasn't just a botched grab. Someone had walked into a hospital, past security, past cameras, with something meant to stop his heart. Why? Marcus asked, voice trembling despite his efforts. I'm nobody. I live behind a dumpster. Why go through all that for me? Garrett turned the syringe in his fingers, watching the way the remaining liquid clung to the glass. Because you're not nobody anymore, he said quietly. You saw their faces. You messed up their plan. And if they're willing to risk a hospital hit, they're scared. He looked up. Scared people make mistakes. That's how we catch them. We. The words settled in Marcus's chest like a hot coal. Does Lily know, he asked, about this? Garrett shook his head. No. She thinks you're sleeping off the surgery and that the nurses are angels. I'm not putting that in her head. His eyes hardened. She's 7. This is on grown men to handle. Grown men. And a 12-year-old boy who'd just become a target. Garrett crossed the room, opened a cabinet, and slid the syringe inside, tucking it behind a folded stack of linens. Doc's a friend, he said. Old acquaintance. I'll show him this and get the toxicology run off the books. Quiet like. In the meantime, this room stays locked unless it's him or a nurse I know by name and face. You see anyone else? He fixed Marcus with a look. You hit that call button, and you yell. Marcus nodded slowly. His hands were shaking again. He clenched them in the blanket to hide it. So this is it, he asked, voice small. They're just gonna keep coming? Garrett didn't lie to him. I don't know, he said. But now I know this isn't random. This is organized. These are people who don't care about hospitals, cameras, cops. Which means if we sit still and hope they get bored, we all get buried. He walked back to the chair and sat down heavily. That's why I need your eyes, Marcus, he said. Every detail you remember from that alley. Every weird van you've seen in the last few weeks. Any guy who watched Lily too long. You're not just some kid who got caught in the crossfire. You're our witness. Our one step ahead. Marcus swallowed. The beeping beside him seemed suddenly too loud. He thought of the van idling too quietly. The driver's baseball cap. The knifeman's coffee breath. The way the doors had slid open before Lily even reached the corner. He thought of Anna's fake smile as she held that syringe. They're not going to stop, he said slowly. No, Garrett agreed. They're going to try again. For her. Or for me. Or both. Garrett's eyes burned. Let them try. Marcus met his gaze. Somewhere beneath the fear and the ache, something shifted inside him. If he did nothing, they'd come in the dark anyway. If he helped, maybe, just maybe, he could make sure Lily never had to scream like that again. Okay, he whispered. Tell me what you need me to do. Garrett exhaled, like he'd been holding that breath since the alley. First, he said, you heal. Then we get you out of this hospital. Because if they walked in here once, they'll walk in again. And next time, they might not knock the chair out from under the door. Marcus glanced at the lock, the thin wood, the flimsy metal bar. For now, Garrett added, you sleep. I'll sit right here. Nobody gets past me. His voice carried a quiet, deadly certainty. Marcus closed his eyes, not because he trusted the world, but because for the first time in a long time, he wasn't listening for footsteps alone. Outside the door, unseen and unknown, someone was already planning the next move. And Marcus, whether he liked it or not, had just agreed to play. Marcus didn't remember falling asleep. One moment, he was staring at the locked hospital door, listening to Garrett's breathing in the chair by the handle. The next, he was jerked awake by a different sound entirely. Silence. No beeping. No hallway chatter. Just an awful, dense quiet. His eyes flew open. The room was dark, lit only by a faint orange glow leaking through the blinds. The 4-pump screen was black. The monitor beside him was dead. The air conditioner's low hum was gone. Power outage. His heart kicked against his ribs. Garrett, Marcus whispered. The chair by the door was empty. His pulse spiked. He pushed himself up on one elbow, pain tearing through his side. The world tilted and steadied. Garrett, he tried again louder. No answer. A tangle of fear knotted in his chest. Garrett wouldn't just leave. Not after everything he'd said. Not after the fake nurse, the syringe, the promise that nobody would get past him. Unless something had dragged him away. The hallway glowed faintly red under the door, emergency lights running on backup power. Somewhere distant, he heard a muffled shout. Then another. Footsteps pounded, then faded. Every instinct Marcus had learned from the streets screamed the same warning. Something bad was happening. He swung his legs off the bed. The cold linoleum shocked his bare feet. The four-line tugged at his arm. He reached up, fingers fumbling with the tape, and yanked it out with a sharp sting. A tiny bead of blood bloomed on his skin. He ripped off the heart monitor leads, the adhesive stinging his chest. No alarms blared. No nurses rushed in. The silence scared him more than any siren. He shuffled to the edge of the bed, pausing as a wave of dizziness washed over him. The stitches in his side burned, but he gritted his teeth and forced himself upright. He wasn't going to be a lying target if they came back. The door rattled. Marcus froze. The handle twisted once, twice. Slow. Testing. Then it stopped. His mouth went dry. The chair Garrett had jammed under the handle earlier was gone. Whoever was out there could walk in if they wanted. He spotted the call button remote dangling beside the bed and grabbed it, more for something to hold than any hope of help. The system was dead. No power. No nurse's station. The door handle turned again. This time, it didn't stop. The door opened an inch, then another, spilling red emergency light into the room. A broad silhouette filled the gap. Marcus. A low voice. Rough, familiar. Relief crashed through him, so hard his knees almost buckled. Garrett. The biker slipped inside and shut the door behind him, twisting the lock. In the red half-light, his face looked carved from stone. What happened? Marcus whispered. Why's everything off? Transformer blew 3 blocks over, Garrett said. Whole hospitals on backup. Cameras, locks, elevators, all running weak or not at all. If I were the kind of scum we're dealing with. His eyes hardened. I'd call this a perfect window. Marcus swallowed. You think it's them? I think I'm not waiting to find out. Garrett crossed to the bed in 3 strides. You up? Marcus nodded, then winced. Kind of. Garrett glanced at the pulled-out 4 and the dark monitor. Good. You're gonna hate what comes next, but it beats a toe tag. He went to the small closet, yanked it open, and pulled out a bundle of clothes, faded jeans, a black t-shirt, a gray hoodie. Those aren't mine, Marcus said. They are now. Snake grabbed them from the clubhouse. Garrett tossed the clothes onto the bed. You've got 30 seconds. We're leaving. Leaving. Marcus's voice cracked. To where? Somewhere these people can't stroll into with a fake badge and a smile, Garrett said. We should have pulled you sooner. That nurse stunt just moved up the timeline. Marcus stared at the door. What about the doctors? The tests? You said. I said I'd keep you alive, Garrett cut in. Doc already cleared you for movement in an emergency. Congratulations, kid. This is an emergency. Marcus's hands trembled as he reached for the shirt. I don't know if I can walk that far. Then lean on me, Garrett said, or I carry you. But you're not spending another night in this building. Every part of Marcus ached. His stitches felt like they were pulling with every breath. But the memory of Anna's cold eyes as she held that syringe burned hotter. He yanked the hospital gown over his head, teeth gritted against the pain, and forced his arms into the sleeves of the t-shirt. Each movement felt like tearing open the wound again. By the time he wrestled on the jeans, sweat dotted his forehead. He swayed. Garrett's hand closed around his elbow, steady, solid, easy. Marcus clung to that grip like a lifeline. If your heart's pounding for this kid's fight to live, like and subscribe so his story doesn't disappear into the dark. Where are we going? Marcus asked. Safe house, Garrett said. Out past the city. Not on maps. Not in any system these guys can hack. What about Lily? The question burst out before Marcus could stop it. Garrett's expression flickered, just for a second. She's already there. I sent her with one of the old ladies and 2 prospects as soon as you went into surgery. She thinks she's on a motorcycle vacation. Marcus pictured Lily, legs swinging off a strange couch, asking when Marcus was coming. Guilt and longing twisted together. Will she know I'm coming? He asked quietly. Garrett's eyes softened a fraction. She will when we get there. He helped Marcus ease the hoodie over his shoulders, careful around the bandages. Then he reached into his vest and pulled out a folded piece of black cloth. A cut? Marcus asked, startled. Garrett snorted. Not yet. You gotta earn that, kid. This is just a spare vest. No patch. But it makes you less fresh out of surgery and more kid who wandered in off the street. Hood up. Head down. You see my brothers, you let me talk. He draped the vest over Marcus's shoulders. It hung big and heavy, smelling like leather and smoke. For the first time in his life, Marcus felt covered, not invisible, Not exposed, just shielded. Garrett cracked the door and peered into the hallway. The emergency lights painted everything in muted red. A nurse pushed a cart at the far end, moving quickly. A doctor spoke in low tones to a family clustered near a window. Somewhere, a baby cried. "Stay close," Garrett murmured. "If anyone asks, you're my nephew. You took a fall off your bike." "Got it." Marcus nodded. Garrett guided him into the hallway, one big hand on his shoulder, steering. Every step was a reminder of the knife. Pain flared with each movement, but Marcus focused on the floor tiles, counting them like he used to count seconds under bridges to make the nights pass. They reached the elevator bank. Red exit signs glowed at either end of the corridor. Garrett ignored the elevators and pointed toward the stairs, not trusting anything that can be cut with a wire right now. They descended slowly. By the second flight, Marcus's breathing had gone shallow, his fingers digging into the rail. Garrett matched his pace, never rushing, never complaining. "You pass out on me. I'm throwing you over my shoulder," he muttered. "I'll look ridiculous, but I'll do it." Somehow, that almost made Marcus smile. They emerged into a side lobby lit by dim emergency strips. The main doors at the front of the hospital were a ghostly glow in the distance, silhouettes moving past in jittery shadows. Garrett didn't head for them. Instead, he steered Marcus toward a service exit near the back, an unmarked metal door with a push bar and a small square window. Through it, Marcus saw the ghostly shape of the ambulance bay, lit by a couple of weak floodlights. Garrett eased the door open a crack. Outside, two hospital security guards stood near a patrol car, talking. A third figure leaned against the wall in the shadows, tall, broad-shouldered, hoodie pulled up, cigarette tip glowing. Something about the way the hooded man's head tilted, slowly scanning the lot, made Marcus's skin crawl. "That one," he whispered, barely moving his lips. "By the wall. He's wrong." Garrett's eyes narrowed. "You sure?" "He's not watching the doors," Marcus said. "He's watching the gaps, where someone would sneak out. Like us." Garrett considered that for half a heartbeat. "Change of plan," he said. "We go through the main, where there are too many witnesses for them to try something loud." He turned, guiding Marcus back toward the central lobby. Every step felt like it took a year. By the time they reached the main entrance, Marcus's vision had begun to fuzz at the edges. He blinked hard, forcing everything back into focus. The main doors slid open as they approached, the weak hum of backup power barely keeping them alive. Cold night air swept over Marcus's face, smelling like rain on asphalt and exhaust fumes. The parking lot shimmered under the orange glow of streetlights. A few cars, an ambulance idling, and at the far end, lined up along the curb like a steel wall, a row of motorcycles. Marcus recognized the lead bike first, black frame, chrome skull on the handlebars. Garrett's. Beside it stood three men in leather vests, their patches glaring in the light. Snake, with his long hair and sharp grin. Deke, the heavy-set one with a buzz cut. And another Marcus hadn't seen before, wiry and restless, fingers tapping against his thigh. The wiry one noticed them first. "There he is," he said, smirking. "The alley hero." "Shut it, Rat," Garrett snapped. Eyes open. "We're not strolling out of here for the scenery." Rat lifted his hands in mock surrender, but his gaze slid past Garrett, scanning the lot. Snake's eyes landed on Marcus, and the sharpness in them softened just a touch. "You look less dead," he said. "Doc did good. He looks like he needs a bed, not a bike ride," Deke muttered. Garrett shook his head. "That bed's a bullseye. We move now." Something shifted near the ambulance. The rear doors opened, and a man climbed down. Paramedic uniform, head tilted like he was just stretching his neck. But his attention wasn't on the ambulance or the ER entrance. It was on the row of bikes. He touched his ear. Tiny, almost invisible. An earpiece. Marcus's stomach dropped. "Garrett, I see him," Garrett murmured without moving his lips. "Everyone mount up. Now." The bikers obeyed without question, swinging their legs over their seats, engines roaring to life in a staggered thunder. The sound rolled across the lot, turning heads, filling the air with a vibrating growl. Garrett guided Marcus toward his bike. "You ever been on one of these?" he asked. Marcus shook his head. Garrett handed him a helmet from the handlebars. "First time for everything. On. Tight. You lean when I lean. You don't fight the turns. You hold on, and you don't let go." Marcus's fingers fumbled with the strap, but he managed to snap it under his chin. Garrett swung onto the seat and reached back, patting the space behind him. Marcus climbed up, every motion sending a stab of pain through his side. He wrapped his arms around Garrett's waist and gripped the vest with all the strength he had left. From the corner of his eye, he saw the paramedic talking into his shoulder, eyes on them. The ambulance engine revved. If you're gripping your seat like Marcus is right now, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss where this ride goes. Garrett twisted the throttle. The bike roared. The other engines joined in, a unified chorus that shook the pavement. Head down, Garrett called over his shoulder. If something goes sideways, I put this thing between you and the bullets. You understand me? Marcus swallowed hard. Yeah. They rolled forward, the line of bikes moving as one toward the exit. The ambulance pulled away from the bay, turning as if to leave. Instead of heading for the street, it angled across the lot, right toward the convoy. Problem, Snake called from the left. They're drifting into our lane, G. Not by accident, Garrett growled. The ambulance slowed, blocking the exit lane like a white steel wall. Its lights were off. No siren. No emergency. The paramedic from before stepped in front of it, raising a hand like a traffic cop. His other hand stayed near his belt. Hospital policy, he shouted over the engines. Lots closed while power's unstable. Need you folks to wait. Garrett didn't stop. He eased the line forward, slow but relentless, until his front wheel was a breath away from the man's knee. We're leaving, Garrett said, voice flat. You can move. Or you can find out how much metal it takes to break that leg. The man didn't flinch. Up close, Marcus could see the faint outline of a tattoo curling up the paramedic's neck, half hidden by his collar. Not a hospital symbol. Something darker. Sharper. This isn't your night to ride, Garrett. The man said quietly, just loud enough for them to hear. Go back inside. Let the doctors take care of the boy. We'll make sure he doesn't suffer. A cold wave washed down Marcus's spine. They knew his name. They knew Garrett's. And they were done pretending this was anything but a trap. Garrett's hands tightened on the grips. Last chance, he said. Step aside. The man smiled. Behind him, the ambulance's engine growled, inching forward. The gap between its bumper and the concrete barrier narrowed. Snake's voice cut through the tension. Gee, we're boxed. Front, back, and security's pretending not to see squat. Marcus glanced toward the hospital entrance. One of the security guards from before stood by the door, arms folded, eyes locked on the scene. He didn't move, didn't radio, just watched. They're all in on it, Marcus realized, nausea rising. Or scared enough to act like it. The man in front of the bike leaned closer, eyes on Marcus over Garrett's shoulder. You're a brave kid, he said, jumping in front of knives. Bleeding for people who aren't yours. But brave doesn't beat organized. Brave just bleeds first. Garrett's patience snapped. The engine roared as he twisted the throttle hard. The bike surged forward, tires skimming the man's boot. At the same time, Garrett jerked the handlebars, angling the front wheel sharply. The bike didn't slam into the man. It hit the ambulance's bumper instead. Metal screeched. The bike jolted sideways, but Garrett used the momentum to swing them around the paramedic, sending him stumbling. Now, Garrett bellowed. Snake and Deke shot forward, their bikes threading the narrowing gap between the ambulance and the concrete barrier. Rat followed, boots swinging out to crack against the paramedic's ribs as he lunged to grab a handlebar. Someone shouted. A hand reached for Marcus's arm. Garrett jerked the bike away, Marcus's grip slipping for a terrifying second before he tightened it again, knuckles white under the leather. Then they were through, out onto the street. Free. For half a heartbeat. Tires squealed behind them. Marcus risked a glance back. The ambulance lurched into motion, swinging out of the lot, lights still off. It gunned straight onto the road, bearing down on the line of bikes like a charging bull. Gee, Snake yelled. They're coming hot. Garrett didn't look back. Then we make them chase us where they can't call for help without explaining why they're trying to run over kids. The city lights streaked by as they picked up speed. Wind tore at Marcus's hoodie, stung his eyes. Every bump in the road sent a shock of pain through his side, but he held on tighter, burying his face between Garrett's shoulder blades. The roar of the ambulance grew louder. They blew through a yellow light, engines howling. Cars honked. Someone shouted. A dog barked from a sidewalk, startled. Garrett veered left, then right, weaving through side streets with practiced ease. Marcus lost all sense of direction, focus narrowed to one thing. Don't let go. Sirens finally wailed behind them, late, desperate. Blue and red flares reflected off windows as a squad car joined the chase. But instead of pulling behind the ambulance, it slid in beside it, blocking one lane. Protecting it, not stopping it. Marcus's stomach dropped again. How many of them are there? He gasped. Enough, Garrett shouted back. But they made one mistake. What? They pissed off the wrong family chasing the wrong kid. He downshifted, engines screaming as they cut across a bridge, the river below a dark ribbon. Ahead, the lights of the city thinned. The road stretched into black, broken only by their own headlamps and the faint glow of distant highway signs. Hold on, Marcus, Garrett said. Next stop. The one place these people were never supposed to find. Marcus tightened his grip, jaw clenched, wind whipping tears from his eyes as the city fell away behind them. And with it, the last illusion that any of this was a random nightmare he could wake up from. Marcus lost feeling in his fingers long before the bike stopped. By the time the engines finally died, his hands were locked around Garrett's vest like claws. The sudden silence felt wrong. Too big, too empty after the pounding roar of the ride and the ambulance's relentless howl behind them. Hey. Garrett's voice cut through the ringing in his ears. You can let go now, kid. We made it. Marcus forced his hands open. His arms shook as he peeled them from Garrett's waist. Cold night air rushed against his sweaty palms, stinging. He lifted his head and blinked. This wasn't the city. They were in a gravel yard surrounded by darkness. No streetlights. No neon signs. Just a long, low building with a sagging porch and a tin roof, its windows glowing a faint, warm yellow. A windmill creaked somewhere in the distance. The air smelled like dust, oil, and wild grass. Beyond the building, he could make out fence posts and the ghostly shapes of trees. No other houses. No traffic. Just open land and a sky full of hard, bright stars. Where are we? He asked, voice hoarse. Middle of nowhere, Snake said, swinging off his bike. Which is exactly where we like it. Garrett killed the engine and planted his boots in the gravel. Safe house, he said. Club owned. Cash only. No paper trail. No neighbors to call the cops when we come and go at 3 a.m. Marcus tried to climb down and almost collapsed. The ground tilted under him. His legs, stiff from gripping the bike, buckled. A white-hot line of pain ripped through his stitches. Garrett caught him under the arms before he hit the gravel. Easy, Garrett muttered. You're not auditioning for the track team. One step at a time. He half-guided, half-carried Marcus toward the house. The porch boards creaked under their weight. A single porch light cast a weak circle of yellow around the front door, attracting a storm of moths. The door opened before they reached it. Lily burst out first. Marcus. Her sock slid on the wooden floor as she ran, nearly tumbling down the last step. A small, wiry woman with gray hair pulled back in a braid caught her by the shoulders. Slow down, Firefly, the woman scolded. You'll brain yourself before he even gets through the door. But Lily wiggled free and bounded forward anyway, eyes huge and shining. Marcus's throat tightened. She looked the same, pink t-shirt, messy pigtails, gap-toothed smile. But there was a new layer of fear around her eyes, like a shadow that wouldn't wash off. She skidded to a stop 2 feet away, suddenly aware of the bandage under his hoodie. You made it, she breathed. Daddy said you would, but I... Her voice cracked. Marcus managed a tired smile. Told you. I'm hard to get rid of. Her fingers twitched, like she wanted to hug him, but didn't want to hurt him. You can hug him, Garrett said. Gentle, though. He's held together with thread and stubbornness. Lily flung her arms around Marcus's middle anyway. Pain flared, but Marcus didn't care. Her small warmth against him made the cold and terror of the hospital feel 100 miles away. If this reunion hit you in the gut, even a little, like and subscribe so more people see Marcus's fight. The older woman stepped onto the porch, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She wore a faded denim shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal arms still strong despite her age. Crow's feet etched the corners of her eyes, but those eyes were sharp and assessing as they swept over Marcus. So this is the idiot, she said. Marcus blinked. What? The idiot who jumped in front of a knife for a girl who barely reaches his shoulder, she clarified. Name's May. I've been feeding these overgrown boys since before your father was born. She jerked her chin at Garrett. Get him inside before he falls down. I just mopped. Garrett snorted. You mop once a month and never let us forget it. And I've kept you alive twice that many times, May shot back. In. Now. The living room smelled like coffee, leather, and wood polish. A sagging couch faced an old TV. A wood stove crackled in the corner, chasing away the night chill. Jackets hung on hooks by the door. Boots lined the wall in a chaotic row. Sit. May ordered, pointing to the couch. Lily, get him a pillow. Snake, you close those curtains. Don't want headlights catching us in a family moment. Garrett eased Marcus down onto the cushions. The springs complained, but the softness might as well have been a cloud after the hospital bed and the bike. Marcus sank back with a shaky exhale. Lily darted in with a pillow almost bigger than she was and tucked it behind his back, fussing until he nodded. Thanks, he murmured. She beamed. Garrett lingered by the window, watching the empty dirt road beyond the fence. You think they followed? Snake asked, letting the curtain drop. They tried, Garrett said. Lost them 5 turns back. They don't know this land like we do. Marcus's muscles refused to unclench at that. He'd seen the way that ambulance came after them. The squad car that protected instead of stopped it. The paramedic who knew Garrett's name. They had reach. They had power. If anyone could follow them into nowhere, it would be people like that. Phone's off, Garrett said. Batteries out if they're not burners. If the wrong ears are listening, I'm not giving them a GPS trail. May rolled her eyes. Already did it. I've been hiding fugitives since you were sneaking cigarettes behind your mama's house, Garrett. Don't teach me my own work. Lily climbed onto the couch beside Marcus, tucking her knees up under her. Am I a fugitive? She whispered. May's face softened. You're a guest who's staying where bad men can't find her. That's not an answer, Lily grumbled. May smiled. Smart mouth. You sure she's yours, Garrett? Garrett finally stepped away from the window. I didn't bring him here to be entertained, he said, nodding at Marcus. We need to talk, and I want all of you to hear it. Snake dropped into an armchair. Deke leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Rat flopped into a recliner, boots hanging off one arm. May took a wooden chair and planted it near the stove, dish towel still in hand. Lily squeezed closer to Marcus, her shoulder bumping his arm. Talk about what? She asked. Garrett looked at her, then at Marcus. About why, he said. And about what happens next. The room quieted. The men in that van weren't just creeps looking for a random kid, Garrett began. They knew my schedule. They knew where Lily would be on a Friday night. They knew which alley had the blind spot between cameras. And they knew my name. That doesn't happen by accident. Snake nodded grimly. Hospital stunt proves it. Fake nurse doesn't walk in with poison unless someone with clearance opens a door. May's mouth twisted. I told you when you left the badge you didn't bury it deep enough. Ghosts like that don't stay put. Marcus blinked. Badge. Lily sat up straighter. Daddy used to be a cop, she announced, proud and serious. But he didn't like how the other cops were mean to poor people, so he became a biker instead. Garrett huffed a humorless laugh. That's one version. May arched an eyebrow. And what's the 12-year-old version you plan to give him? Garrett rubbed his jaw. For the first time since the alley, he looked tired. Heavy. Short version, he said. I went undercover in a trafficking ring. Kids. Women. Bad people paying worse people to make problems disappear. I got in deep. Got close to the man who ran it. Gathered enough evidence to bury him and his clients for life. He paused. They decided a few of those clients were too important to bury. Marcus's stomach clenched. Important like politicians? Garrett's eyes met his. Politicians. Judges. Men who wore suits and smiles on TV, then wired money to buy children. When it came time to arrest them, charges vanished. Files got lost. Evidence got compromised. The only ones who burned were the lowest rungs of the ladder. May snorted. And one good cop, whose career suddenly didn't fit the department's values. They outed me to the man I was supposed to take down, Garrett said. Not directly. Just made sure he knew someone close had been feeding files to internal affairs. Next thing I knew, my undercover name was on a hit list and my pension paperwork was on my desk. Lily leaned against Marcus, listening with big, serious eyes. What happened to the man? Marcus asked quietly. The ringleader? Garrett said. Vanished. No body. No trial. No closure. Just a whisper that he'd been relocated. Witness protection, They called it. Like he was the victim. He looked back toward the dark window. His name was Anton Vale, Garrett said. Last I heard, he died in a car accident halfway across the country. But men like that? They don't really die. They just change masks. Snake shifted. You think this is him? Coming back from the grave for your kid? Could be him, May said. Could be someone wearing his old clothes. Either way, the playbook smells the same. Marcus swallowed. He used to buy kids? Garrett nodded once. Your age. Younger. Older. Didn't care. If there was money, they found a way. The room felt smaller suddenly. The safe house walls, the old furniture, the cozy stove, they all felt like cardboard in the face of something that big and ugly. And now, Garrett said, whoever's running his old routes has decided that the best way to send a message is to take my daughter. Or failing that, his gaze landed on Marcus. Kill the boy who got in the way and make sure nobody can testify to their faces, their van, their hospital games. Marcus's skin crawled. So what do we do? He whispered. We stop being prey, Garrett said. We stop reacting and start hunting. Rat snorted. Hunt who? Cops are in bed with them. Hospital's dirty. Security's blind. Only thing we know for sure is that they got balls big enough to run an ambulance into a biker convoy. May slapped the dish towel on her knee. Language. I mean massive courage and confidence, Miss May, Rat corrected quickly. She smirked. Garrett turned back to Marcus. You said that paramedic at the ambulance bay felt wrong, he said. You noticed he was watching the gaps, not the doors. You picked up on it before I did. Marcus nodded slowly. He had a tattoo on his neck. Not like a hospital one. Like barbed wire and a crown. I didn't see all of it. Snake leaned forward. Color. Black and red, Marcus said. Looked old. Snake whistled. Red Crown. I've heard that name. Small-time muscle a few years back. Did security for clubs that weren't on the up and up. Rumor was they graduated to logistics. Trafficking, May translated. Yeah. Snake scratched his jaw. If they're staffing ambulances and hospitals now, no wonder they move kids without a blip. Marcus felt suddenly cold. All he'd ever wanted was to be invisible enough not to be hurt. Now he was staring at the edges of something huge and organized and ruthless. Why me? He blurted, the question that had been gnawing at him since the syringe hit the floor. Why go this hard on some homeless kid? You said it. I'm not worth the trouble. Garrett's gaze didn't waver. You're a witness, he said. You saw the alley, the van, the driver, the knife man, the hospital stunt. If any part of this ever crawled into a courtroom, you'd be the only one not on somebody's payroll. May nodded. They don't need you dead because of who you are. They need you dead because of where you were standing. If that reality feels messed up but real to you, like and subscribe so more people see what kids like Marcus face. Lily's hand slid into Marcus's. They're not going to kill you, she said fiercely. Daddy won't let them. And I won't either. You're 7, Rat muttered. What are you going to do? Lecture them to death. Lily glared. I'll kick their shins. Despite everything, a tiny laugh escaped Marcus. Garrett's mouth twitched. She gets that from her mother. A shadow crossed his face at the mention. Marcus filed that away, but didn't ask. So, Snake said, we have an ex-undercover cop, a handful of bikers, one pissed-off grandma. Watch it, May warned. And a half-stitched 12-year-old against a network that can turn ambulances into kidnap vans, Snake finished. What's the genius move? Garrett's eyes hardened. We flipped the script, he said. They think we're hiding. Running. They think we're going to bury ourselves out here and pray they forget we exist. He shook his head. We're not. We're going to make ourselves bait. The room went still. May's brow shot up. Run that by me again. They want Lily, Garrett said. They want Marcus dead. That's leverage. As long as they think they can grab either, they'll keep coming in the shadows, in hospitals, in parking lots. We won't see them until it's too late. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But if we give them a target on our terms, he went on, a place, a time, a situation where we know they'll come hard, we can be ready. Cameras that they don't control. Men where they don't expect them. Eyes in the places they think are blind. And when they come to take what's ours. His eyes burned with cold fire. We take them instead. Marcus's pulse thudded in his ears. Use us, he said slowly. Like, set us up as traps. Garrett didn't sugarcoat it. Yeah, it's ugly. It's risky. I hate every part of it. But sitting here pretending this farm is a fortress won't keep you or Lily safe forever. They found us once. They'll find us again. Better we decide where and how. May shook her head. You're talking about putting your own kid in the crosshairs, Garrett. She's been in them since the day they saw her face, he said. Difference is, this way, I'll be the one holding the trigger, not them. Lily squeezed Marcus's hand tighter. What does that mean? She whispered. It means, May said quickly, grown-up stuff. And before any of you start playing cowboys and ghosts, this boy needs real rest and real food. You can't use bait that's half dead. Garrett exhaled slowly. She's right, he said. He looked at Marcus. This isn't a decision we make tonight. You just survived a knife and an ambulance hit. I'm not piling strategy meetings on top. Marcus licked his lips. If I say no to being bait, Garrett nodded once. Then we find another way. I meant what I said back at the hospital. You don't owe me favors because you did the right thing. Marcus looked at Lily. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were tired. But there was steel in her small jaw, a stubbornness that matched the man standing in front of them. He pictured her in that alley again, arm yanked, ice cream on the ground. Then he pictured Anna's cold eyes over that syringe. If he stepped back, they would still come. Maybe slower, maybe from a different angle, but they would come, and he'd be watching from behind someone else's legs, hoping they were fast enough. I don't like being prey, he said quietly. Garrett's eyes met his. In that look, there was no expectation, just a question. Then I'll help, Marcus whispered. However I can. Just promise me one thing. Garrett's voice softened a fraction. What's that? If this goes wrong, Marcus said, throat tight. You save her first. Lily's head snapped toward him. No. Yes, he insisted. If it's between me and her. Garrett cut him off. Stop. The word cracked like a whip. You don't get to decide that, Garrett said, voice low, rough. You don't get to crawl under my responsibility to my own kid and tell me who I throw in front of what bullet. Marcus flinched. What you just did, Garrett said, is prove again that I was right about you. You're willing to die for someone who doesn't share your blood. He stepped closer. That's my job, Garrett said quietly. Not yours. Not hers. Mine. You want to help? Fine. You want to be eyes, ears, brain in the cracks they don't see? Even better. But don't you ever try to write your own death scene for my sake or hers. That's not how family works. The word hit Marcus like a physical thing. Family. He hadn't had one in so long it almost didn't feel real. Lily leaned her head against his shoulder again. You're not dying, she muttered. I just got you. May rose from her chair, wiping at her eyes as if she just had dust in them. Enough drama for one night, she declared. Marcus, you're eating. Then you're sleeping. And if anybody tries to talk strategy in front of that boy before sunup, I'm whacking them with a frying pan. She marched toward the kitchen before anyone could argue. Rat muttered something about being more afraid of May than any trafficker. Snake chuckled, but the tension in the room didn't fully let go. Garrett squeezed Marcus's shoulder once, brief but firm. May's right, he said. Tomorrow, we start figuring out how to make ghosts bleed. Tonight you heal. Marcus nodded, exhaustion washing over him again now that the adrenaline had finally ebbed. He leaned back into the couch, Lily a small, warm weight at his side, the low crackle of the stove filling the room. Outside, the night stretched wide and dark, the open land a thin buffer between them and something vast and unseen. Inside, for the first time in longer than he could remember, Marcus didn't feel completely alone. He felt hunted. He felt terrified. But he also, quietly and unexpectedly, felt claimed. And somewhere out in that darkness, the men who thought they were hunters were already adjusting their sights, never imagining that the scared, half-stitched boy on a sagging couch was the one who would help drag them into the light. Marcus dreamed of sirens. They bled into motorcycle engines and Lily's distant voice calling his name, always just out of reach. Every time he turned toward her, the sound slid away and the hiss of the wood stove replaced it. When he finally woke, the safe house was quiet. Dawn light washed the living room in pale gray. The stove glowed with low orange coals. A blanket lay over him, smelling of soap and smoke. Lily slept curled against his side. Fingers knotted in his hoodie like she'd anchored him there on purpose. His side throbbed, but the pain had dulled from white-hot to heavy and insistent. Carefully, he eased Lily's hand free and sat up. The safe house looked different by daylight. Photos of Garrett, a woman with Lily's eyes, and grinning bikers on a crooked shelf, a child's drawing of a motorcycle taped to the wall, pink sneakers lined up next to grease-stained boots. Voices murmured from the kitchen. He followed them and found Garrett, Snake, Deke, Rat, and May around the scarred wooden table. A road map lay open, pinned with salt and pepper shakers. Red lines and circles covered the streets around the diner. Coffee steamed in mismatched mugs. "You're supposed to be lying down," May said, but she pulled out a chair for him anyway. "Sit. Before gravity wins." Marcus lowered himself carefully. The map looked like a battlefield. Garrett tapped a spot with his finger. "Here's the diner. Same place. Same time. Same yearly charity run we always do." "You're still doing that?" Marcus asked. "After all this?" "That's exactly why we're doing it," Garrett said. "We act normal. Public posts, open route, Lily handing out cocoa. If they're watching, they'll see we're not hiding." Snake slid a cheap flyer across the table. "Bikers handing out blankets. Annual charity rides" scrawled above them. "We pushed it to the usual places last night. They'll expect the same patterns." May crossed her arms. "And they'll expect the same blind spots." "Not this time," Snake said. "Allie's getting eyes. Camera's not wired into anything they can touch." He pointed to another mark. "Rooftop here. Window there. All on battery. No Wi-Fi. Old school recording." Garrett nodded. "And the ambulance move?" "We answer with our own van. Same model. Parked where they used theirs. Our people inside, not theirs." "What about the hospital?" Marcus asked quietly. "We don't go near it," Garrett said. "We've got a doctor riding with us. Nobody we care about rolls into their territory unless there's no other choice." Marcus stared at the routes and circles. "Where do I fit?" "Right where they expect you least and see you most," Garrett said. "Beside Lily at the front. At the cocoa stand. In full view, surrounded by cameras and bikers, not bleeding in a blind alley." "And if they don't come?" Marcus asked. "Then we handed out cocoa and blankets and went home," Garrett said. "If they do." His jaw hardened. "We get faces, plates, patterns. We follow them where they think they're ghosts." Fear crawled up Marcus's spine. He imagined the white van again, the knife, the fake nurse, the ambulance bearing down on their line of bikes. If picturing this kid stepping back into danger hits you at all, like and subscribe so his story reaches more people. A small voice cut across the table. "You're not doing any of that without me." They turned. Lily stood in the doorway, swimming in an oversized hoodie, hair a mess, chin set. Sleep still clung to her face, but her eyes were clear. "You're going back there," she said. "To the place they tried to take me." Marcus almost died. "I'm not staying here like a baby while you fix it." Garrett rubbed his forehead. "Lily." "No," she said. "They want me scared. Hiding. You told me that." "Well, I am scared. But I'm not hiding. If Marcus is going, I'm going." The room went very still. For a long moment, Garrett just looked at her. Marcus saw the war behind his eyes, father and fighter pulling in opposite directions. Finally, Garrett exhaled. "You stay glued to me or May. You don't wander, you don't run. If I say down, you drop. If I say go, you go. No arguing." "Yes, Daddy," she said, relief and defiance mixing. Garrett looked back at Marcus. "You still sure?" "No," Marcus said truthfully. "But I'm going anyway." May dragged a box onto the table and flipped it open. Bandanas, cheap sunglasses, fingerless gloves. "If they're hunting a half-dead kid in a gown, they're going to be disappointed," she said. "Pick something. You're going as trouble, not a target." Lily tied a red bandana around Marcus's neck with solemn care. "Now," she said, "you look like you bite." By noon, the engines were rolling. The convoy into the city was bigger this time. More bikes, more noise, more eyes on them as they passed. Marcus clung to Garrett's vest, his stitches complaining with every bump. Lily rode up front in a pickup between May and Snake, face pressed to the glass, waving every time they stopped. The diner looked exactly the same. Faded sign. Cracked lot. Same dumpster where Marcus used to sleep. Today, the parking lot became a stage. Bikes fanned out, riders laughing and stretching, May and Lily setting up a cocoa table near the sidewalk. The sign Lily taped to the front read, "Free cocoa, be nice." To anyone else, it looked like a feel-good scene. Marcus saw how often Snake's gaze swept the roofs, how Deke never turned his back to the alley, how Garrett stayed within 20 feet of Lily at all times. The van cruised past 15 minutes later. White. Unmarked. Different plates. Different driver. Same chills sinking into Marcus's bones. That's them, he muttered. Or people like them. On the third pass, it turned toward the alley. Lily, Garrett called, light on the surface. Check with May about more marshmallows from the truck. She opened her mouth to argue, then heard the tone under his voice and obeyed. Marcus watched until she disappeared behind the open tailgate. A man in a gray jacket drifted from across the street. Baseball cap, hands in pockets, casual on purpose. His gaze slid over the stand, then snagged on Marcus. A flicker of recognition. His hand brushed his ear. Left, gray jacket, Marcus murmured. He knows me. Got him, Snake said softly from behind. Cameras rolling. The gray jacket man retreated to the edge of the sidewalk, watching, waiting. Two teenagers approached the cocoa table, jostling each other, laughing too loud. One bumped the table hard. Careful, Marcus said automatically. Sorry, man, the boy said, and his hand dipped under the tablecloth. Metal flashed. Gun. Marcus didn't think. He seized the edge of the table and heaved. Cups, cocoa, and plywood exploded upward. The board smashed into the kid's wrist. The gun clattered to the pavement. Snake's boot pinned it before it stopped sliding. Deke took the kid down in a practiced, brutal movement. Screams rose. Phones came up. Across the street, Gray Jacket swore into his mic and broke into a run for the alley. Marcus. Garrett snapped. Marcus was already moving. His side howled, but adrenaline burned through it. He sprinted for the gap between buildings that had nearly become his grave. The white van sat at the far end. Door open. This time, Lily wasn't there. May was. She stood in the middle of the alley, arms folded, braids swinging, eyes cold. You boys are late, she said. The man jumping from the van froze, thrown off script. He still lunged, reaching where a struggling child should have been. May stepped aside, caught his arm, and used his own momentum to slam him shoulder first into the brick. His head cracked the wall. He dropped, dazed. The driver threw the van into reverse. A roar answered. 3 bikes slid into view behind the van, boxing it in. Rat and 2 others. Engines rumbling, front wheels kissing bumper and fender. Up close, this kid's fight probably has your heart pounding. Like and subscribe so more people see what he's facing. Footsteps slammed behind Marcus. The man in gray burst into the alley mouth and jerked to a stop. Garrett was right there, grabbing his collar and driving him into the opposite wall. Gray Jacket's cap flew off, revealing a black and red barbed wire crown tattoo curling up his neck. Smile, Snake's voice called from somewhere above. You're on 3 cameras. Marcus glanced up. Tiny black lenses peered over the edge of the roof, angled down. Old school, battery-powered. Untouchable. Gray Jacket spat blood. You think this sticks? He rasped. You know whose payroll you're messing with. Garrett leaned close. The kind that burns when enough people watch. The man May had slammed tried to push up. She planted a boot on his shoulder and drove him back down. Stay, she said. We're not done showing your tricks to the neighbors. The van's rear doors gaped open. Inside, zip ties, a blanket, duct tape, a cooler. Evidence of all the kids who wouldn't get lucky enough to have a biker army in their alley. Marcus stepped closer, shaking. Look at me, he told the man under May's boot. The man sneered, but his gaze lifted. Remember this face, Marcus said. Remember hers. He nodded toward the alley mouth, where Lily now stood beside Snake, eyes huge but steady. We're the ones you didn't get. He jerked his chin toward the cameras. And now everybody else gets to see you too. Sirens screamed closer, real ones this time. Squad cars boxed the street. Uniforms spilled out, confusion and calculation flashing across their faces as they took in vans, guns, bikers, and cameras. A lieutenant shouldered through, eyes flicking from cuffed men to tattoos to Marcus's bandaged side. What is this? He demanded. Garrett stepped away from Gray Jacket with his hands open. This is what your city's been pretending not to see. You can walk past it again, or you can bag it. Snake tossed him a flash drive. Multiple views. No edits. You lose it, other people won't. The lieutenant stared at the drive, then at Marcus. The too young, too thin boy who'd almost bled out in this same alley. Something in his face changed. Cuff them, he snapped to his officers. Secure the van. Every inch cataloged. One officer hesitated. Sir, that's an order, the lieutenant cut in. Or you can explain why you left kids in a snatch van because you didn't like who stopped it. Chaos unfolded, evidence bags, zip ties, shouting. Through it all, Marcus stood very still, breathing hard, Lily's small hand slipping into his. You did it, she whispered. We did it. First crack, he murmured back. Days later, the TV in the safe house played a muted news report. Alleged links between private ambulance contractors, hospital staff, and an interstate trafficking network. Sources say new evidence has reopened a buried undercover case. Garrett came in from the porch, phone in hand. They want your statement, he told Marcus. The good ones. Maybe witness protection. New name. New place. Real roof. The words landed like a gift and a threat. Marcus looked at Lily drawing a motorcycle with wings. At May stirring a pot on the stove. At Garrett, carrying all his ghosts. What about the other kids? Marcus asked quietly. The ones still in vans like that. They get what they always got, Garrett said. Unless more people start doing what you did. Lily grabbed Marcus's hand. Your family, she said fiercely. They can't just ship you away in a file. For the first time in his life, someone waited for his answer. He thought of alleys and hospital rooms, ambushes and cameras. Of the way Gray Jacket had looked when he realized the shadows weren't his anymore. Of all the kids whose names no one knew. I don't want to disappear again, Marcus said. Not into streets and not into some place where nobody knows me. I want to help. I want them to remember my name. Garrett's shoulders eased. Then you stay, he said, with all the mess that comes with it. May snorted. School. Chores. Real doctors. You sure you don't want the safe anonymous option? Lily beamed through tears. Too late. You're stuck with us. Despite the fear still coiled in his chest, Marcus smiled. Outside, the wind carried the faint hum of traffic on a distant highway. The world was still ugly and dangerous. The network they'd nicked would thrash and twist and try to heal. But somewhere inside that mess, a 12-year-old boy who'd once been invisible had chosen a side, a family, and a fight. Marcus stepped out onto the porch, Lily at his side, Garrett leaning in the doorway behind them. The sky stretched wide above the fields, open and uncertain. Think they're still out there? Marcus asked. Oh, they're out there, Garrett said. Watching, waiting, planning. Marcus nodded, fingers tightening around Lily's. Good, he said softly. So are we.